grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to get drunk, do drugs, get in trouble, hang out with friends, and reminisce about old stories. I'm sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out, talk shit, talk shop, and reminisce. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Ian Lara.
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you for having me.
What's going on, man? So, comedian, you've been all over TV. I saw your Fallon set. That was awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, I've done a couple things. I'm a comedian doing the rounds.
Part owner of a major airline. That's also
right,
big.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah. That is a huge thing. Yeah. I'm out here, man. I'm out here trying to do it.
So yeah, you're a comedian, you're in New York. Tell everybody kind of before we get started, plug everything up front. I know you and I have a show coming up next week. This is going to drop tomorrow. So any other shows you got coming up? This will come out New Year's Eve. So if you have any shows tomorrow night, just plug everything.
Yeah. I'm on, first of all, I'm on Instagram at my name is Ian, IANLARA live. I'm on Instagram. My website is ianlaralive.com. Got a lot of my dates up there. For the next few weeks, I'm here in the city. So I'm at the Comedy Cellar and at the Stand, jumping back and forth. We got a show next week. And then in the middle of the month next year, I'm going back on the road. So I'll be in like Little Rock. I'll be in Minnesota. I'm going to Houston. I'm doing a thing.
Doing it. So I kind of like to start every episode the same way to kind of get to know the guest. You're a very hilarious comedian. I've seen your set a bunch.
Thank you.
I love the what was it a couple of weeks ago when you got on stage and you had that nice jacket on, but it wasn't even that cold, and you're like, no, I gotta wear it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's right.
I was like, did he just riff that? Because that was hilarious. But
it's funny. Yeah, I don't know what day you saw that, but I actually was at the Stand one day with a jacket, and I had that conversation with one of the waitresses where she was like, she's like, is that a new jacket? And I was like, yeah, I gotta wear it. I was like, I know it's not cold. I just gotta wear it because
it was that show. It was that Monday show for Frantic, I think it was.
Yeah. Well, it was actually on a Saturday. So that was I did it on stage and it just worked. So I just kept going with it. So that's what I've been doing. This is about like the pandemic told me to wear your outfits as soon as you get them. You can't save them. You don't want to be in a closet full of clothes. And
when we moved to New York, I had all these winter clothes because we were supposed to move last year and then the pandemic hit. So it got postponed. But my girlfriend, Savannah, friend of the show, everyone loves her. She bought me all these winter jackets and all this stuff. So we moved up in July. As soon as it got a little chilly, I was wearing that. You
gotta wear them, yeah.
And I'm sweating like on the subway because it's only like 50 out. It's not that cold, but it's like she spent all this money. I haven't been able to wear this stuff in a year. Like I'm wearing it.
Right.
You're out of your mind.
Right.
Tell everybody kind of how it happened. Were you always a fan of comedy? Because you and I are about the same age, and everyone on this podcast who listens has heard my story till they want to throw up. But I know for me, it was a very long game. It was, got into stand-up, got out, got in, got out. For you, were you always a fan of comedy? Because you grew up in the city, correct?
Yeah, I was. As a kid, I was always a fan of stand-up. I remember watching stand-up first time, like with my brother as a young kid, and just watching like my brother and my sisters just laugh. Like I remember, I think the first stand-up that I ever fully sat through and saw with my family was Jamie Foxx, I Might Need Security.
Okay.
And I just remember my brother just laughing so hard. And I was just like, that. I was like, man, that's nice. Like dude just laughing so hard in his living room. And since then, like I always had like a love for it. And I was just like, but I had a love for it. I never thought like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do till like probably like high school. That's when the first time like a lot of my friends started putting that into my ear. Like, oh, you should try stand up. And a lot of times when you like a class clown, when you making jokes and stuff, people call you a comedian. Like, oh, he's a comedian. because you're making jokes or whatever. And that's the first time that I had like the chip, like,
So is that a more common thing? Because I've talked to comics from all over the world, literally Australia, Europe, all sorts of places. And me being from Florida, I too was the class clown, and everyone's like, oh yeah, like comedian. They used to do that thing, but I never in a million years thought to do stand up, because in Florida, it's not as readily available as it is in New York.
right.
So
Right.
living up here and growing up here, was that something when you were in high school where you're just like, oh, I mean, I guess I could do this?
Well, not really. Like in high school, I kind of had it in my head. It was in the back of my head as like something that I would try. It wasn't really till college, till I got a little older in college. And then I started to learn more about it. Like I didn't even know that New York was like the Mecca for stand-up. Really.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I knew New York was the Mecca for everything. Like anything you want to do, you could pretty much do it in New York to a certain extent. I knew that if I wanted to start, I knew there were clubs in the city that I could go to.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Right. But I didn't know like, oh, there's the Cellar and there's this and there's that. Like I had to learn that. And that was like right around the time that Louis was taking off the show on FX. And then from watching Louis, I was like, oh, there's this club, the Comedy Cellar, that like all the comedians perform. Then I learned more and more and more about it like that. So once I knew that New York, once I was like, oh, you could do this in New York, I was like, all right, I think I'm gonna try it.
Okay. So what you had mentioned when you were in college, where did you go to college?
I went here right here in Long Island, SUNY, a state school, SUNY or Westbury.
Okay. And then, so obviously going to school, because I say this all the time to people, is that I wouldn't have a lot of my material had I not gone to college and played football and done all that, because it's a lot of stories about those days. But at the same time, a big part of me wishes someone would have just came up to me in high school and been like, move to a bigger city, start doing stand up. Like that's how it works. Like you do open mics, get into a scene. And that way I could have skipped, that 7 years of like back and forth, or maybe I want to do this.
Sure.
So when you were at SUNY, were you thinking like, what was your end goal? Were you thinking like, oh, I'm just going to go to college because that's what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to get like a job in finance, or like, what were you thinking?
Nah, I was actually pre-law when I was in college. So I was like,
Me too.
I was like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to get this pre-law bachelor's and I'm going to go to law school. And it was really like, I actually saw a comedy competition in my school where some of my peers, it was junior year, some of my peers performed in it. And they got laughs, like they got real laughs from the thing. And they weren't comedians. They were just friends who performed, who was like, let me try this out.
Yeah.
And people laughed. And that's when I was like, really like, nah, I got like next year, I got to do this. I got to join this.
Did you watch it going like, I would like, these people are like, they're getting laughs, but I would be a lot better than them at this?
At the time, I didn't think I would be a lot better. I just thought like, these people are good and I'll be good with, I could be good too. And then also like people put the battery in my back too. Like, yo, you got to do it. Like next year, you got to do it. Even that year, people's like, yo, why don't you do the competition? You got to do it.
Oh, cool. So then you did that. So then going ahead to your senior year, you do it?
So between junior and senior year, when I came back home to the city, I found out where you could do an open mic. And I found Laughing Buddha.
Okay.
Open mic. The thing, Laughing Buddha wasn't it's not what it was now. It was just like a small little thing. They used to run like 1 or 2 open mics a week with Jeff Lawrence. So I Googled it and they had all this promotion on the internet. So I Googled it. And back then, I don't know if it's still around. Back then, it was a website called Badge Slava, I believe. Where it showed all the open mics in the city.
Still around.
So, right. So
or it was last year before, because we were supposed to move and someone told me about it.
Okay. Yeah. So I went. I looked it up. I think it was a Thursday. Yeah, it was a Thursday. Laughing Buddha used to have an open mic at Broadway Comedy Club. And I went. And the thing about Laughing Buddha is like the Laughing Buddha mics were ran. They still to this day, they're ran very efficiently. So it's like, it's not a bad open mic. Like it's not one of those things where you show up and there's 2 jaded comics in the audience who hate the business and not going to laugh. Laughing Buddha wasn't set up like that. Like
we talk about that on this show a lot.
Right. Jeff Lawrence, though, like people complain about the like him charging or whatever, but like he charges is for a reason, because the product that he's putting out there is
you get what you pay for. Yeah.
Right. It's a better product than everywhere else. Like that open mic, I remember I went, it was like 30 people there, 30 comics, but you can't be on your phones, and he suggests you stay till the end. He does a raffle at the end. Everybody stays to the end. So it was like a very supportive environment. So my first exposure to it, I was like, this ain't that bad. This is all right.
Yeah.
It took me getting more into it to realize, they not all like this, but at that point, I was like, this isn't that bad. And I went and I did a set, and I did well for like my first time. I did really well.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, oh man, like this is something I could do. So over that summer between junior and senior year, I did it probably like 10 to 15 times more, that summer. And then when the competition came around the next year, I did the competition.
So you were ready for the competition, because you said your junior year when you were watching it, it was just kind of friends who were funny and they made people laugh, but they weren't like doing comedy. But you had reps at that point. Like you had like whittled down a set and you were like kind of in it.
Yeah, I did. I did that summer, but the competition wasn't until next April. So from August till April, I didn't do any stand-up.
Oh, okay,
I wasn't
okay.
coming back home and going on stage. But I did feel like I was ready because I had those reps, and I was running around New York City doing it for a summer.
Yeah.
Which none of those other guys were doing that.
Yeah. So did you destroy it? Did you crush the competition?
Yeah,
thing?
I mean, I remember at the competition, they had me close, and I did like I remember after that, like on campus, I was like kind of like a celebrity. Like on campus, like everybody was just like, yo, like forget all this, like you're gonna be a stand-up comedian. That was hilarious thing. But I lost.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
As the great Derek Gaines says, plot twist.
I lost. I'm not sure why. Like I really.
Who did you lose to? It's not. Is it just strictly a stand-up like comedy competition, or is it like a talent show?
It was just stand-up.
Who did you lose to?
It was judged by the judges of the Long Island. Some people that ran the Long Island Comedy Festival, which at the time I thought that was a thing, but now to find out that's not even a real festival. I never heard about the festival ever again. Like it's a real festival, but like it holds no weight in the industry.
We have that in Jacksonville too. We have the Jacksonville Comedy Festival.
Right. I thought these were like industry insiders that like made decisions, but never heard of them ever again. But yeah, I don't know why I didn't win. But I remember like even that, like from that day on, like whenever somebody saw me on campus, because it was like a full house, because the competition, it was like the year before was the first time, and it went so well that the next year, like it got buzzed. So people were like, oh, nah, we're coming. And especially me, like I was a senior at that point and I was fairly popular. So people was like, oh, nah, we gotta go see Ian, because people thought I was already funny. So it was a full house. And I remember like it was to that point, it was like one of the best sets I ever had. Like it was like leveling, like boom, 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 boom. Of course, I was a new comic, so it wasn't like good material or good stuff. I was kind of just getting by on like kind of my personality, and
they're your friends. People like you. They want you to succeed.
Right. And I was also talking about the school. So it was so relatable to them. I was making fun of like stuff from the school. So they understood and they got it right away. So it was good. The first year, when I went to the competition, Chris DiStefano actually closed the comp.
Chrissy Chaos.
They had the students compete, and then they'll have like the headliner, Chris came and he headlined, and he like leveled the room, leveled. And it was like a mostly black audience too, because like at that, it wasn't a black school, but just that show was like just a lot of black, it was mostly black students that participated. So it was like a fully black audience, and Chris comes on like this white boy and just murders. Like he had people falling out of their chairs, and that was like what I wanted when I saw Chris do that. I was like, I want that. I want what he just did. And it was like a kind of thing where he was like, they were, I guess, the judges were like getting their tallies in order. So it was a kind of thing where he was just like murdering. And then he would just be like, am I done? Am I good? And they're like, do more. And then he'll just be like, all right, boom, 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 boom.
Whatever. Yeah, let's keep going.
He's like, am I good? Do you want more? It's like a little more. Boom, 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 boom. Murdering. Like it wasn't like he was just weaving in and out and just murdering. He was like, all right, I'll do one more. And then just leveling.
Dude, that's awesome. So when you were in school, what did you study? Because you said pre-law. I was political science and American history. Those are my major and minor.
I was political science and economics.
Okay. What was your emphasis in political science? Did you have anything in particular?
No, because it was
foreign affairs.
It was a double major, because it was political science and economics. You really couldn't focus. They kind of just gave you an overview of both things, because it was too much to focus. And I honestly just got it because it looked good on paper. I was like,
it sounds great when you say it out loud.
Right, exactly. I think I was originally a history major, and then like sophomore year I saw this major and I was like, this sounds good on paper. Like I could probably even if I don't go to law school, I could probably work with this in many different fields. I didn't know where I was going with a history degree, so that's why I switched.
Yeah, nowhere. That's really because I have my minor's in American history, and I'll tell people like, yeah, I majored in political science, and then they're like, oh, what else? And I'm like, American history, and they go, so you're gonna go to law school? And it's like, no, that ship is kind of sailed. They go, so you're gonna teach? It's like those are my only options. Cool,
right?
All right, awesome.
Same thing. So I was kind of hedging my bet on it, and I was like,
the economics is genius, you can work because anywhere.
Even though like it's economics, the degree is it means nothing. Like I don't know anything. I like you don't it don't teach you nothing. Like it's like such an over
macro versus micro. Right, I can tell you about that.
Like whatever, whatever. Okay, I'll go work in finance, baby. I just was hedging my bets on all things. Yeah,
so that's the economics in you. You're just like, all right, let me make sure. So you said you were pretty popular in college. Did that stem from, were you in a fraternity, or did you just go to a lot of parties? Like when you first got there, were you just like, because you stayed close to home, did you go with like a lot of friends? How did you gain all the, because I was super unpopular in high school, got bullied a lot, even though I played football and everything. I like was an outcast. And then when I got to college, I was like, no more, I'm going to turn my whole life around. And I did that. Like I became real popular. I was playing on the football team and everything worked out real well. But I'm always interested, because you had mentioned a lot of your friends in high school, and then you go to college. Was it a weird transition for you? Because a lot of times you see that swing where if you're real popular in high school, you get to college and it's kind of like, wait, what?
It was a transition, definitely, because it went from like being a kid to being like an adult on your own, in
quote unquote.
School. Right. So that was a transition, but I was fairly popular in high school too. And when I went to college, at first I wasn't as probably, was kind of to myself. I went with one of my best friends. He was my roommate.
Okay.
And we were kind of like, I remember like the first semester, we were kind of to ourselves, because we was just like, you know, we just wasn't out there like that. But like when we started making friends and making acquaintances with people, like people realized like me and him, we were just two funny dudes. So when you have that, when you're the class clown, funny dude, people just want to be around you. Like, at first it started with the girls. Like the girls, not that they like want to like us or anything, they just want to be around us because they want to laugh.
They want, if you can make them laugh, you can make them breakfast.
Right, it's gonna be funny. So it's not even like we was getting a ton of girls, but they would just come hang out just because they would be like, "Yo, these guys are funny. They're crazy." So like once that started to spread, that's how like we got more and more popular. Like first the girls started, and then the guys started. We would play basketball and stuff, and we would be funny on the basketball court. So like that's how like we came. And the school, the people that dormed, it wasn't that huge anyway.
Yeah.
So it was about 1,200 people that dormed. It was like 6,000 the whole school, but 1,200 dorms. So it wasn't that difficult to stand out.
Yeah. See, and that's something I find really interesting, especially when it comes to that. And then comedy, like, because your stage presence, I had mentioned to a friend of mine that you were coming on the show, and she got so excited. She's like, oh, I remember him from the show that we went to on Monday. Then we saw him again at a show on Tuesday, and we were talking about it. And it's interesting to me because you're very charismatic. Obviously you have a lot of stage presence. You're very likable. So to say that's not just that's not a character that you're playing on stage. Cause there's some comics where they almost seem approachable on stage, and they get off and you go to talk to them and they can be assholes. And you're like, oh, yeah, fuck you. And I've learned that just from doing this show. I've been in comedy since 2009. And it's crazy because I'll reach out to comics that I'm like, oh, I think I really like their set. I really like their stuff. I think we have a lot in common listening to them on podcasts. Let me reach out. And they'll basically just tell me to fuck off. And I'm like, oh, so that's a character you're playing on stage.
Yeah.
But for you, that's like
very weird. That's very weird to me, because it happens a lot. Like sometimes, like even when you hit me up, sometimes people hit me up like asking to do their podcast, and they're like, hey man, like I don't mean to like bother, but if it's okay, like if you have time, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do your like, who do you think?
That's exactly what happened with this. You and I've seen you a million times at the stand, but we've never officially met because I just kind of hang out there. Friend of the show and really funny comic Matt Fulshon was like, yeah, man, do the open mics and stuff, but you've been doing comedy long enough. You're probably better off just like hanging out at the clubs. And if they need someone to go up, you're there, you're available. He was like, that you're probably, that's probably a good thing to do. So I'm at the stand and I work 4 blocks away. So I'm there all the time. So I've seen your set. I see you around, but we've never officially met. So I was like, we're on the show together. I thought it would be cool if we could promote the show January 6th. Citizens of Chelsea, West 25th Street, 730. I thought that would be cool. And then I was like, there's no way. Like, this guy's got TV credits and he's got, all these followers. There's no way. Cause I've reached out to other people before and they just ghost me and tell me to fuck off. And then you were like, yeah, man, cool. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's so weird to me. Yeah, that's weird to me that people behave that way. Especially sometimes I find out that like the people who behave that way are people who are less along than me. Like sometimes somebody will tell me a story like, oh, this person said, and I'm like, that person said that? Like, yeah, that person.
I've been big time by open micers, basically.
Right. I'm like, that person is an open micer. Like, who's he big time? And that's
like
crazy.
I've been at the stand and like I'll be hanging out with Dan Lamore because he's been friend of the show, been on the podcast. Him and I did shows together in Florida. That's how I knew him. And then when I moved up here, he's been a great friend. And him and I will be hanging out, and then he'll introduce me to people sometimes. And I'll be like, oh, you should come on the podcast. And they're like, nah, maybe. And then I'll like look them up and I'm like, you big time me? You big time me.
Yeah, man. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I'm not like that. Like if I can't do it, I've said no before because I've been busy or something. So it's like, I can't do it right now. I can't, get it. But if I have the time, like I had the time today, like, I do your podcast.
Well, and especially with Zoom now, because we both live in the city, but you're on the other side, and
right.
It's Zoom makes it so much easier because it's like, I don't have a studio yet in New York, just trying to figure it out. And so it's cool because it's like, okay, it literally will take an hour. There's no travel time. I don't have to like clean the apartment. I don't have to worry about like, what am I going to do with my dog?
Right.
Like, it's just, we'll just hop on and do it. And so I'm incredibly grateful that you came on, and it's cool.
I'm grateful you had me. I was like, I'll do a podcast. I took shit for a little bit.
I thought it was super interesting because back to what we were talking about with the stage persona versus the life persona, because there are times I'm a very intense person and I'm kind of aggressive, and I portray that in my stand-up. Like a lot of the stories I have are pretty intense and it can get kind of dark, but it's interesting because I've worked with people before, I work in restaurants and I've worked with people for months. And then I'll be like, then someone else that we work with would be like, oh, are you going to Brennan's show? And they're like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, he's a comic. And they're like, he does comedy. Yeah. The psycho does comedy. And they're like, yeah, he's actually pretty good. So it's just, it's interesting because my real life reflects my stage presence. And it's the same with you. And I find it fascinating when it's just not the case, because that's the one thing I love about stand-up is it's honesty. That's like Lenny Bruce is probably my all-time hero when it comes to comedy. And it's like, we're honestly pointing things out in a funny way. And so when people do the opposite of that, when they just basically flat out lie on stage, it's like, oh, you're a real piece of shit.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I'm obviously like stage. I wouldn't say it's a persona, but it's obviously an exaggerated.
Absolutely.
Who you are, but I learned in comedy, it's very important to find like what it is that is you. Like I see some of the comics, like you see it so much in New York, the white neurotic nerdy comic that goes on stage and just murders the room because they're so in tune with being the nerd and the comic and what they do, and it works for them, and like that's their lane, and they have to stay in that lane because that's what works for them. And I enjoy that. Like I enjoy watching that, and I be thinking it's like mad funny, but I learned quickly that's not me. Like it's not believable as me. Like I can't go up there pretending that I'm like this nerdy like neurotic dude. And it's mostly just because it's not my aura. Like it's like
that's what I'm saying. Someone with your kind of like confidence and like swagger.
Right.
If you got up there and you're like, hey guys, they'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
The way I'm dressed is like, this is not believable that you behave like this. And my thing off stage, I try to just like be genuine with people and try to have like a honest connection. So that's like what I try to bring to the stage. Like it's just like a sense of like genuine, like recent, like in the last week, I've been doing shows where like I always go first, like in the shows, like I always like usually open up shows, but sometimes they brought me on stage and the audience has been like a dead audience, like like no energy.
Yeah, I've seen
a
few of those.
And I just be opening like come on, like what are we doing, guys? Like y'all gonna do this? Like y'all came out. like
you paid
the
money,
COVID
you're
numbers,
out,
yeah,
you're
the
drinking,
COVID
and
numbers
now
are crazy. Y'all came out, y'all here, and now y'all gonna act like this. Like what's like I literally just been telling them that. Like, what are we doing? Like, is this how y'all gonna be? Like, we getting paid regardless. This is on y'all. Like, and literally, like they've been like, yeah, you're right, and like the energy has come up. Like, I literally just opened with like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not to joke. I'm just being genuine. Like, we all came out. There's a variant going around. The numbers are crazy, and then y'all gonna act like this. Like, y'all don't want to laugh. This only works if you guys have energy, and they'll be like, yeah, he's right. And then like the energy will come up, and then I'll just do the set.
that's a great approach, because I'm very bad with talking to the audience, because like I said, a lot of my comedy is intense, and a lot of, knock on wood, most of the time I don't have to worry about like a lot of people coming back at me, because I'm a bigger dude and I'm very aggressive. Like when I get up, so people are like, all right, like we're just going to sit quietly and watch. Because, I talk about like the scars on my body and getting in fights and getting arrested. And like, I got a scar on my forehead. That's like my big closing bit, but it's like, yeah, don't fuck with that guy. But at the same time, the disinterest is the thing I have the hardest time with, because I'm not good at addressing the audience, because it immediately seems like I'm like about to fight everybody, which is not my intention, but that's just how it comes. That's just how it comes. Like you said, that's genuinely how it comes off. And so I've gotten stuck in that situation where I've done like one or two bits and I'm like, this isn't like, you paid money. Like what's happening? Like, why are we doing like, what is, and it's just gone off the rails. And I'm like trying everything to get them to laugh, but I'm not addressing the actual issue in the room, which is what's going on? Like, why are we acting like this?
Yeah. Well, I guess it varies on who you are on stage. Cause like you said, since your act is so aggressive, it would kind of be like, you got to break the fourth wall to address them, because you have to go from like,
just come way down and be like, hey guys,
be like, hey guys, what's going on? Like, what's going on? I don't have that. Like my
you're very,
is me being like, what are y'all doing? Like,
you're very chill. It's very much
that's
like
generally how the act is. And I don't usually, I mean, obviously, when you do stand-up, if you do it enough, you're going to run into everything. You're going to rhyme, you have hecklers, you're going to run into everything. There's no way around it. But generally with me, like people usually don't mess with me, because I usually have the audience's trust. So like people, like I feel like they feel like, if they like when they mess with me, like the whole audience is going to turn on them. Cause even if I'm not like killing or like the audience like me, they still be like, oh, this is a cool dude.
He's a nice guy. Yeah. We enjoy his company. Even if it's not crushing, they're like, well, we still would rather have him on stage than somebody else. Like, this is fun. Right.
I've had sets where
I love these stories.
Yeah. I've had sets where I go on stage. And like, cause I generally, I usually feel the love from the audience, like immediately. Like, it's not that I'm like killing or making them laugh, but like I feel the genuine, like, this kid seems cool. Let's see what he has to say. Like I feel the benefit of the doubt. But there is times where I go on stage and I don't have that, and I just be like, what's wrong? Like, what did I do? Like, what did I do?
What did I do?
Well, y'all don't like it. A lot of times that'll happen if I get a little too cocky with it. Like if I have too many good sets in a row, and I get a little too cocky, like I'm like, oh, they're gonna love me. I go up there and then they don't love me, and I got to bring myself back down to earth.
It's very humbling, because there are times where when I first got here, I was like, I don't want to do open mics. I want to do book shows, and I joke about this all the time, but had I known I didn't need to like work as hard as I did. Like I worked my ass off when I got sober and got back into comedy to like get 30 to 45 minutes, like get a feature set together. I was like, I need to do all this before I move, get the podcast going, get some traction, get the website. I did all this thinking like, then when I get to New York, I'll be established. And then I got here and everyone's like, we don't give a shit. And I was like, I should have moved. I shouldn't have wasted like, all that time trying to get all that stuff set up. I should have just moved. But when I got here, that's exactly what happened. I was like, I'm not doing open mics. Fuck that. I'm above that. And then I got humbled and I was like, well, I guess I have to do open mics.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, we all get humbled. Yeah. That's the business. That's the business. I've seen the biggest stars get humbled.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
And I've been at the stand some nights when there's, 14 people in the audience, but they're not going to cancel the show. And you see the lineup and you're like, how is this possible? Like, these are killers. And then they go up there and it's like, oh, this is going to bring everybody back down there. I don't care how many views you got online. Like, this is the real world now, Playboy.
Right.
But when I got up here, I remember I went to do an open mic and I had that big head. I was crushing at all my going away shows in Florida. I got up to New York and I was like, fine, I'll do an open mic, but like didn't do a set list, didn't think about anything, wasn't new. I was like, I'll just go up and do it. I've been doing so well lately. I'll just go up and do it, and bombed so hard in my first set in New York in front of all these new comedians who don't know who I am. And I just ate a dick. And I was like, oh, this is not getting off on the right foot.
Right. It's a weird thing in the business where like whether you bomb or you do well, you have to just take the last set out of your mind.
Yeah.
You just have to it's like sports.
Yeah. I was just about to say
whatever happened the last play, that was cool, but that don't matter this play.
Yeah. Now we got to move on to the next play.
Yeah. It don't matter. Like it's not, you're not going to do it again the same way you just did it. It's not going to work that way, and if you get cocky, the other team is going to fuck you up. Cause that's the thing. Like the audience is not an opponent, but they'll fuck you up though. If you don't give them what they basically paid for or deserve.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where it's not like you versus them, but at the same time, it's almost like you're supposed to be leading them. It's not like me against you, but it's like you trust me to get us where we're going. Right. And if I don't deliver,
when you're not a good leader.
Yeah, exactly.
They can smell that on you.
Yeah. People, it's weird because sometimes not a lot, but every once in a while, comics will blame the audience, and that has happened. I've been in really well-adjusted sometimes. Yeah, and I've been in really well-adjusted rooms where I'm talking about suicide, and everyone's just staring blankly at me, and I go, okay, I misread this, but at the same time, it's like it is my responsibility to read the room better. Like I should have done a better job, so it kind of falls on everybody.
Yeah, it falls on everybody. Sometimes it's their fault.
Yeah, so no, it is. I've seen those sets too where I'm dying and I'm like, are you guys not paying attention to this right now? Because this is hilarious.
Right.
I wanted to talk. You said you were in college with your best friend. Did you guys spend all 4 years together?
We did 3 years, and then he left the fourth year.
Okay. Did you guys get into any kind of trouble while, like you said, you kind of got out of your shell sophomore year and kind of got to know, but did you get into any kind of like shenanigans or any kind of trouble while you were there? Because that's an interesting thing to go with your best friend, like ride or die, like here we go kind of thing, away to college.
Yeah. I wouldn't say trouble, but I remember the college days, like we were kind of like too cool for school kids. Like we were just like I was kind of book nerdy-ish. Like I used to
economics. I got it, nerd.
Yeah, I used to like go to class and get good grades and worry about graduating. And my best friend was just like, fuck it all. Like we just here, just have a good time. Like I remember one semester he just lived on campus and did not go to class the entire semester. He just didn't go to class. He just lived on campus like it was an apartment. Didn't go to class. Didn't even bother to drop the classes at the end, like so he wouldn't get the F because you drop the class.
Yeah, so you could do ad drop before, like in the first week, and you can get all your money back. And I used to do that when I would get student loans.
So you don't get the F.
So you don't fail.
Your GPA. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he
in Florida,
even do that. He couldn't even go to the thing to drop the class to get a signature to drop the class.
In Florida, you can do it 3 ways. You can drop in the first week, then you get a full refund. You can drop before midterms and you get half your money back, or you can drop before the final. You get no money back, but then you don't take the L. You don't get the F.
Right. Yeah.
But,
so I remember his GPA like was literally 0 like for a semester, like because he didn't drop any class. He just got 4 Fs.
He just wasn't worried about it, like.
He had tried to I don't want to say his shit too much, but he had pledged that semester, and then like something happened where his line had to get dropped, and when he came back to civilization, he just wasn't there. Like he just wasn't. Like,
okay.
So
lived in it like it was an apartment.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually my goal for the new year is I actually want to start a podcast with him because like I said, I remember in school, we were just the kids that everybody wanted to hear talk. So I was like, why haven't we had a podcast where we just kind of...
That's a great idea. Yeah, I had the original, because this whole idea for this podcast started like 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, when I was in college with my best friend, and I had him come on as a guest, and we talked about those days. Because that was the thing, is when I got to college, like I was saying earlier, it's like, I'm going to turn the whole thing around. I did a whole 180. Like I went from this nerdy kid that got bullied to now I was like, I'm not going to take any shit. Like, fuck that. And I remember the second day I was there, I almost got into a fight with one of the linebackers, like full scholarship linebacker in Florida. So this dude was a man amongst boys, but he like said some shit to me in an elevator when I was helping a friend move her stuff in. And I was like, you said you weren't going to take any shit. You're not going to take it. And I turned around and just like got in his face. And that was the end of it. And then I was just kind of like, okay, like, here we go. And that's how it all started. And then I became popular. And then that's why I had my good friend on from back then. And we talked about this whole idea of the Drinking Buddy podcast and stuff. Cause that's what it was we would just like hang out and get drunk at parties and just talk. And so I was like, oh, that is a podcast. That's what it is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be a great idea if you got your old roommate to come in. Did you guys do you lived on campus all four?
Yeah, I did. I lived on campus all four.
Did you when did you start like going out to parties and stuff? When did that happen?
We was partying from freshman year. Like we was partying from freshman year. Junior year, we were the party guys. Like,
okay, tell us about that.
We moved to like a because in my college there was a new side where it was like the new dorm rooms, and then it was the old side. The new side, it was new dorm rooms, so there was like a lot of cameras and a lot of like university police would monitor it a lot. Yeah. So like a lot of stuff would get shut down. It was new buildings. But the old buildings had none of that. No cameras, no nothing. You were kind of on your own there. So when we moved to there, we got a
Brooklyn before the gentrification. I got you.
Right. When we moved over there, we got a suite and we became the party guys. Like Thursday, we would have and then one of our friends was kind of like a DJ. So
okay.
Yeah, like he really wasn't, but I remember one time he was just playing music and we was like, yo, like you good at playing music. Like you and now he's like a full DJ too. But it started there.
Damn, that's where it all happened.
Well, we was like, yo, you good at playing music. So we started doing it where I remember our school was Monday through Thursday. So Thursday was the party night. Nobody really had classes Friday. So we started throwing parties on Thursday. We would start throwing parties in the suite at like, the party would start late. It would start at like 1 or 2. So
get the fuck out of here.
Right. So everybody would do what they do Thursday, party, whatever. And then they would come to us. And we used to have it crowded with a DJ. Used to be full blown like parties for like every Thursday for like the whole year.
So it would go until like 8 o'clock Friday morning?
Huh?
It would go to like 8 o'clock Friday morning?
Yeah, sometimes later. Sometimes it will go because I remember breakfast opened at like 9. Sometimes it will go till 9. We'll party till 9, go to breakfast, and then go to sleep.
Damn.
Yeah, that was like that's how we was doing it, and we became known as the guys. We had a crew actually. The name of the crew, what was it? Smack Boys.
That's the name of the podcast.
That was the crew, Smack Boys. I never thought about that. That was the crew where I never thought about that. We should name it that.
Hell yeah.
We should name it that. Yeah, that was the crew. Like everybody used to see us like, yeah, that's the Smack Boys. Cause we used to just throw parties. There used to be like a lot of alcohol, a lot of like partying, a lot of alcohol and weed. That's what I didn't smoke weed, but they did. But that's what we did. We never messed with anything else, but alcohol and weed. That was it.
Damn. So when did you start? Were you partying in high school and stuff? Were you drinking in high school too, or?
Not really. I ain't start drinking until I was 18 in college.
Okay, yeah, I was in the same boat.
That was the first time I got drunk.
Yeah, first time I got drunk, well, I was 18. As like got drunk. I was like 18. Which is always so weird because my siblings are like, we're like the popular kids in high school, so they're getting hammered at like 14, 15, and I'm like, nah, I'm gonna wait. So the Smack Boys, tell me. That's a great name. Love it. When you started doing that, you said that was your junior year after they built the new dorm. Did you ride that? Because it's interesting to me when you say I was a double major, I had a minor, I was getting good grades, I was always going to class, but then you tell me, but then you can't say that in the same sentence as I'm also a smack boy. Like, what's up?
I was a founder of a Smack Boy.
That should be on the Tinder, not the Delta thing. The founder of Smack Boys.
Yeah. I've always been a dude that could compartmentalize stuff. So I've always been a dude that could I'd be like, all right, if we going to the party at 1, let me knock out this report by 10:30. So we out, and then we out to the party. Like, okay. And that's just me. Like, I've always been like that. I'm like that with comedy. I've always been like that. I know I could be like, all right, what do I need to do? Right,
just laser focused. And then you get it done. And then you see, I was always the opposite. I'm very much a procrastinator. So I that's where I always struggled. That's why I actually did better in college, than I did in high school. Because high school, it's a lot of busy work, like do these
Right.
like bullshit assignments every single day, 5 days a week. But then when I got to college, it was like, no, you take 2 tests and one like written dissertation, and that's your grade.
Definitely, yeah.
And I crushed that because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
all I got to do is show up and take the test.
Yeah, that's the thing with college too. It's like you said, like it's not like most of the days. It's not you're not like there's nothing to do. Like you go to class. I was always like the kind of dude that like if I paid attention in class,
Yep,
I didn't really have to like.
we're the
study,
same person, man. I was the exact same way. As long as I paid attention, took a couple notes, I just retained it. Especially because you know this with political science and history, it's storytelling. That's all it is.
Right. So when you had a teacher that was a good storyteller,
like,
it was crazy. Like I ran into that guy. First time I ran into that guy was in high school. My U.S. history teacher, that he was a good storyteller, that he was painting it like he was telling you a story that was current. That was when I was like, this shit is mad interesting.
Yeah. And that's the thing I tell when people are like, oh, I don't really like history. I'm like, despite all of America's faults, it's like the greatest underdog story of all time. Like if you go back, it's like England was like this huge power, and then there's these little rebels, and you're like, there's no way this is going to work. And then it worked. I was like, how is that not interesting? That's Star Wars.
People that could bring it to life though. Cause I've also had the boring teacher that is just like you reading from the textbooks.
Yeah, that sucks.
But there's teachers that really could bring it to life and tell it like it's a story about like you and your boys and what you're going to do. That, the first time I ran into that, that's when I was like, oh, history is mad interesting. Yeah.
That's so cool that you were able to not only be the founder of the Smack Boys, but you were also able to do everything with school. Did you ever? So this is something I really want to talk about. When you, so you do the competition, you're into comedy. What happens? You graduate and then you're like, cause I really want to get into cause you've done Fallon, you've done Comedy Central, and we're the same age. And obviously my road was much different with the arrests and the drugs and the rehabs and stuff. So I find this so fascinating. When you decided like, all right, I'm done with school. Did you think like, I'm going comedy like this? Did you take the LSATs? Did you try to get to law school? Like what happened?
Yeah. When I finished school, I was like, you know what? I've been in school my whole life. I want to take a year off, study for the LSATs and go to law school the following year. So that year, as soon as I graduated, I believe it's like May 17th, something like that. Like the next week, I started going to the open mics. I was like, well, when I'm studying for LSATs, I'm gonna just do open mics because what else I'm gonna do? I had a job during the day. I was working for Delta Airlines. And
that's where that comes from.
That's kind of where the bit comes from. Yeah. I was working for Delta Airlines, and then at nighttime, I would just go and do open mics. And it started off slow. At first, it was like 1 mic a week for like a couple months. Then I was like, I got to move it up. Then it became 2, 3 mics a week. I got to move it up. 5 mics a week. Got to move it up. 10 mics a week as I went along. And I was studying for the LSATs, and I did take the LSATs. And I started applying for law schools. But it just so happened that as soon as I started like applying to law schools, like I kind of started getting some traction in stand-up where I didn't have any credits or anything like that, but I was getting on consistent shows, like where I didn't have to necessarily do a bunch of open mics. Like I was actually doing shows.
So you were passed at certain places at this point, or were you doing bar shows?
I wasn't passed. At that point, I wasn't passed. I got passed at the Stand shortly after, like maybe like a year and a half later. I got passed at the Stand. But at that point, I was working for, like, Laughing Buddha used to run a lot of shows at that point. Laughing Buddha was exploding. Like, so they wasn't just open mics now. They was running a lot of shows.
It's like the Hell Yeah Boys. They're starting to run. They started with just the open mic at Cellar 77, and then they started doing a show, and now the show's growing. It went from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and now they're starting to gain traction with that. So it's a very similar situation with them.
Right. And Laughing Buddha, they was doing like 5 of them a week, like 5 shows a week. And Jeff saw how hungry I was and how about comedy I was, that he, like, early on, he offered me, he's like, hey, do you want to host? And I just became the host, where I was hosting 4 or 5 shows a week and making nothing, $25, $30 a week. But I was getting the stage time.
It's the stage time, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember speaking. I remember at one of the shows, there was this lawyer couple in the audience, and I was speaking to them after the show, and I was telling them, you know, like, yeah, I'm applying to law schools, like, kind of giving me advice, and they were kind of just like, hey, man, like, this was like 2012 too. We had just gone through the recession, the Great Recession, and the economy wasn't doing too good, and they was like, hey, man, if you want to be a comedian, like, we'll tell you, like, if you want to be a comedian, if it's between comedian and a lawyer, and you're picking lawyer because you think lawyer is more safe, They were like, it's not. You might as well just go for the comedian if that's what you really want, because both of the fields are just as volatile. Lawyer is not a guaranteed thing. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people end up quitting. So if you really want to do comedy and you're just afraid of the risk, just take comedy, because at least you're going to love what you do, because the risk is going to be there with the lawyer too. And I was like, okay, strangers, I'll take life advice from you. And
well, it's interesting you say that, because Jim Carrey, I don't know if you saw the Man on the Moon documentary, but he talked about his dad was an accountant and got laid off at 52. Yeah. And he was like, so my dad played it, and it led to a lot of volatility in their household and stuff. And he goes, so my dad played it safe, did the right thing. And then at 52, everything was gone. So if I'm worried about playing it safe and I could still fail, why not just play it dangerous and do what I want to do?
Right.
Because you could fail either way. So you might as well do what you want.
Exactly.
That's awesome that the lawyers and Jim Carrey, man. How well did you do well on your LSATs, if you don't mind my asking?
I think if I remember correctly, I got like a 153.
Okay.
153, which is decent.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It was decent. I think the highest you can get is like 173.
It is.
But it's graded on a percentile, so it's not about what you get. It's about how higher you got than everyone else who took the test at that point. So I was like, I forgot what percentile I was in, but
it sounds like 97, 95th percentiles. You got to be somewhere up there.
I forgot, but it was decent. It was decent. Where it was like you can get into any mid-tier law school.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because I took the LSATs, and then I'd applied, did the whole thing, and then I did the same exact thing. That's weird. We're like the same person. I was like, I took the LSATs right out of school, but then I was like, I'm gonna take a semester off. Like, I lost football a few years prior because of injuries. My life was starting to fall apart. Like, I had just barely graduated. I had a really high core GPA because I loved political science and history, so I liked going to those classes. But I had a garbage overall GPA because the prerequisites and stuff they make you take, I was like, fuck those classes. And right. I was like you and your roommate at the same time.
Right.
And so I remember I was like, oh, I'll take a semester off. And then I started doing comedy. And then that turned into a year, there's no way I'm going to law school.
Right.
When did you, so you said you started gaining traction, started hosting for the Funky Buddha, and then
Laughing Buddha.
I'm sorry. Funky Buddha's a spot in Jacksonville. That's why.
Yeah.
And then you started hosting, and then you started gaining traction. When did the Fallon thing and the Comedy Central, when did all that happen? Was that years later? Or because I know that was just a few years ago when you did those.
Yeah, the Comedy Central thing, that was 2018.
Okay.
I was 6 years in at that point. And I had showcased for Comedy Central.
How does that whole thing work? Because you got to remember, I'm from Florida, where you just do open mics and we all run our own shows. So that's just kind of how comedy works down there. In New York, because it is so industry based, there's so much industry everywhere. Like you go from open mics to hosting this show, a few nights, 5 nights a week, to all of a sudden you're showcasing for Comedy Central. Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, that's the thing about this business. Like, I remember when I was young and new in it, like, you kind of want somebody to give you like the exact blueprint. Like, tell me what I need to do, and I'll just do that. And that's not how that works. I've grown. It's really, really simple. Like, it's really simple. We kind of over complicated. Like, if you're in New York City and you're performing on shows and you're doing well on a consistent basis, people will find out about you. And they will put you in positions to succeed. Like, that's just how it works. Like,
because if you're good, you can make them money, and then that's all.
It's not doing good for one show, 2 shows. For me, I think it works like in 2-year intervals. Like, to grow, like you have to do well for 2 years before you'll get the next opportunity. Like, when you're coming up, like, But in New York, like, there's so many people that have leverage that you consistently do well, like, because nobody's gonna see you do well once and be like, yeah, let's do it. You gotta consistently do well, and also you gotta like be brought up when you're not around, and the consensus has to be, this kid,
that person's funny,
before anybody's willing to like take that leap for you. For me, the first person was Adrienne Appalucci, who took she saw me, and it was, again, I was new. It was one of the things where I was like maybe 3.5 years in. But, I was grinding. I was doing open mics. Everybody knew me at the open mics because I always was like working at the open mics. And People asked me to host their shows, and this one dude, Simon Ratchford, he asked me to host his show. I remember it was at Stand Up New York, and Adrian was the first one that I had to bring up, and she was like an established comic already. Like she was already doing things past at every club, had done Comedy Central, Letterman, and everything. And I just went up and I was hosting, and I was having like a good set, and then I brought Adrian up, and she was just like, oh, she was like, oh, good set, whatever. And I brought her up, she did her thing, thought nothing of it, and then like a couple weeks later, I got hit up by Chris Italia, who was running Cringe Management, the owners of the stand. And he was like, hey, man, Adrian, like, forwarded me your stuff. Like, she said you were, like, a really funny comic, and we were interested in working with you if you'd be interested in, on Facebook. He hit me up like that. I remember I was driving home, and he hit me up on Facebook, and I was like, did
that blow your mind? Were you just like, all right, here we go. Like, this is why we play the game. Or were you just kind of like, all right, cool.
It didn't blow my mind. I was excited about it. It didn't blow my mind because for me, like I always was able to get like a new notch on my belt. Every time I got a notch on my belt, like I felt like it was long overdue.
Okay, got it.
I didn't have that excitement where I felt like it was.
You were more like about time. Damn.
Yeah, not about time, but I was just like, yeah, you should, you still want to work. I was very excited for it. But I didn't have that thing where like when you get it really early and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I didn't even have that for the Tonight Show where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I was really excited and it was an honor to do it. But when I did it, I felt like I'm ready to do this.
Okay. So you were comfortable. You weren't worried about it as far as, I mean, obviously there's nerves because it's national television and stuff, but you weren't.
And I was anxious, all of that. But I wasn't like, I don't deserve to be here.
Exactly. You knew you deserved to be there. Yeah.
Right.
Because all the work you put in.
It's happened like that in everything I've done. Like when I did JFL, the same thing. When I got in at the Cellar, same thing. Where I'm like, no, I deserve the stage.
Okay, that's awesome too, because you mentioned earlier 2-year intervals, and it's interesting you mentioned that because that seems to be the general consensus. A lot of people I have on the show, or a lot of people I talk to, or look to for advice or anything like that, because it can be frustrating because like I've been doing comedy for a very long time. And it can be frustrating to get to a new city, the mecca of comedy, and be like, all right, I'm ready. And then everyone else is kind of like, nah, we don't know you. Like, go sit over there. And so I've reached out to people before and been like, I don't know like what to do. And they all say the same thing. You got to give it 2 years. Like before you can even think about, maybe I'm not good enough at this, you have to grind really hard and hustle for at least 2 years, or you're never going to know.
You can't look at it like the 2-year clock. You can't look at it like the time is counting up to 2 years. Like, oh, in 2 years, I'll be ready. You have to do it like the clock is counting down.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to work like the clock is counting down.
You have to get it. I see what you're saying. You got to put in as much work as possible before time runs out.
You can't just sit there like
and be like, okay, 2 years, here it comes.
Right. No, you got to do it like the clock is running out.
Wait, that's really good advice. If we weren't going to name this the founders of the Smack Boys, we would definitely.
right.
What I want to get, you had given me a couple stories, and I know we kind of got off on a tangent about comedy. I just love hearing about that kind of stuff because I've said it a million times, but like comedy genuinely saved my life, and it's so interesting to me how people get to where they're at. So you said this happened in Minnesota, is that correct? One of these stories that you told me about.
Yeah.
So are you touring? Is that how that happened? Or
yeah, this was early.
I was going to say, how does a dude from Queens end up in Minnesota?
Yeah, I was touring early on. This was early on. This is probably like, I was probably like 6 years in at that point.
So had you had your credits and everything at this point?
I had just comedies. No, I had nothing at that time.
Okay.
I had nothing at that time. I was just touring off like word of mouth.
Yeah, that's how we do it a lot in the South.
People recommended me to touring agents, and I would send them a tape and they would get me out there. Okay.
So take us through this. What happens? You're in Minnesota. Is it the winter time? Is it the summertime?
I remember it was Minnesota, and I got that date as a fill-in because at that, like, it was like a big cold snap in Minnesota where it was like negative. I remember when I landed, this is not an exaggeration. When I landed, it was negative 52 degrees.
It was
negative 52 degrees.
Fuck you.
It was like the polar vortex. You remember that word?
Yeah, I do remember that. Oh man, I do.
Yeah, it was that time. So the comedian who was doing it, they canceled. They were like, I'm not going to this. It was like a national headliner.
It's so funny to me because what I do know about your upbringing and stuff, obviously, is from on stage, but you always talk about being Dominican, being from Queen, you know, like this Latino family and stuff. And just to see you in Minnesota, the whitest place in the country, and negative 52-degree weather.
I've been everywhere. Minnesota, not even, to be honest, Minnesota, not even that white. I've been Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. Yeah, like those are white.
Dakotas.
Yeah, I've been to both the Dakotas many times, not just once, many times.
Damn.
Minnesota's like a happening city. It's not even like that white. Especially like the Minnesota St. Paul area. I remember. So I take this date. I fill in for the date. I'm there.
Negative 52. You're there. Yeah.
The club is in the Mall of America, so you don't got to go outside.
Yeah, I heard.
I forced myself to go outside just so I could feel it, because I know people are gonna ask what does 52 degrees feel like. So I forced myself to go outside just to feel what that type.
What's it feel like?
It's honestly not. It feels It doesn't feel that different than like 0 degrees. It's just you get to frostbite quicker. Like that's what it is. Like,
okay,
that's the difference. Like in 0 degrees, like frostbite would take, let's say, 15 minutes. In negative 52, in 2 minutes you can be at frostbite. So you'll just get freezing quicker. But it's still cold.
Freezing is freezing is free. Like it feels the same. Yeah.
Right. It's the time it takes that you get cold. So, anyways, the shows are light. It's freezing. It's freezing.
The apocalypse.
Thursday, Friday shows are light. Saturday comes, there's a heat wave. It's negative 20. the people are tanning. Everybody's out. Sold out shows on negative 20. Everybody's like, we had to get out the house. We had cabin fever. Sold out shows. So I do the shows, whatever. Shows go fine, and I meet this girl. This girl. She's a nurse or whatever. She's like, hey, what are you doing after the thing? And I'm like, oh, nothing much. My hotel's like right in. I just walked to my hotel. She's like, oh, we're going to this bar right next to the club. Again, in the Mall of America. If you want to come.
Oh, it's all in the mall. It's all
in the mall. You don't gotta go outside. So we go to the bar. Drink. We having a good time. Again, this is not like my norm. Like I don't usually like meet people on the road or like hang out with people like that on the road. But this was all so convenient. So I was just like, yeah, I'll do it right there.
I mean, you're already in the mall. You might as well.
Right. Like... And it was right next door. And I just walked to my hotel room. So I was like, I'll do the thing. I'll party, whatever. So we're drinking, getting drunk, taking shots. They're like partying. Like Minnesota white girl, they party. They could throw it back. Like no. Dig.
So you're doing liquor, because I know you've been on a tequila. Red wine stint, but you're doing liquor.
Yeah. I'm doing tequila. Yeah. So we're doing shots at the Mexican place, and it's like also like this is like it's in the Mall of America, but this Mexican we might as well have been in Tijuana. This is like it was like Mexicans in there. Like I haven't seen like this. You don't see stuff like this. It was like Mexicans that look like they just got here, and then us, a black kid.
How did you get to Minnesota?
And 2 white girls, yeah. Long story short, we end up getting drunk, and she asked to go back to my hotel room. So I'm like, I'm drunk. I'm, like, yeah, let's go back. So she comes back to my hotel room. We start like hooking up, like things start getting or whatever, start hooking up.
Yeah.
All I remember is she's like on top of me, making out with me, and she takes her 2 thumbs and rams them into my eyes, like eye gouging me, like pushing in, like it's like elevator button. Like, when you want the elevator door to close,
but like just out of nowhere?
Out of nowhere. Like it's just in the hookup. Like she just think. And I remember my eyes are like hurt. Like I'm like, what the fuck? But I'm drunk. So in my head, I'm like, is this like a thing that I'm forgetting because I'm drunk? Like it's just like a new thing that's out that I'm forgetting because I'm not all there. So I don't say nothing. So we continue, whatever.
Did she stop? Like, was it like a quick thing and then she stopped?
I don't remember. She ends up leaving anyway. She's like, all right, whatever, I'm going. She ends up leaving. The next day, I don't think nothing of it. I go to sleep. Like my eyes feel weird, but I'm like, I'm drunk, whatever. She's present. The next day, I wake up with the biggest eye infection in the world.
Oh my God.
My eyes are bloodshot red. I can't even open one of them. I remember a couple weeks prior, I had just got LASIK surgery.
Oh shit.
I had just got LASIK surgery. So my eyes, like, I start calling all my friends, my boys from the city. I'm like, yo, have you ever heard of this? Like, before I go crazy, like, is this a thing that girls are doing that I don't know of? Like, I'm asking all of my boys that are like fuck boys. I'm like, is this a thing? All of my boys are like, yo, I've never heard of that. I've hooked up with girls. I've never heard of that. This is not a thing. This is a code red.
Damn.
This is crazy. Long story short, I had to find a LASIK doctor in the mall like, because the mall has everything.
Yeah.
I find a LASIK doctor in the mall. I go to the doctor, my glasses on. She has to prescribe steroids for my eyes. And she was like, the most embarrassing story. She's like, hey, listen, man, you can't be letting these girls just gouge you. She thinks I'm like some weirdo that's into like the freakiest thing. I have to be on steroids for the next 3 weeks to get my eyes back to normal. But I go back to my hotel room. I did the shows that night. And,
I was going to say, did you have shows?
Yeah. Never brought it up to the girl again.
God, that's insane. Do you still, did you get that girl's information? Like you still talk to her at all?
I have a number. We never spoke. She hit me up later that day saying, hey, how are you doing? I never brought it up.
God.
I was too insecure.
Damn, man. Oh, fuck. Well, I want to get to this other story. That sucks though. You just got LASIK. What if she fucked your shit up?
That was a risk I was willing to take for white girl.
Yeah, I got
in Minnesota.
I wanted to bring this up. You said it was interesting how it was sold out shows because everyone's like, oh, cabin fever. We've been stuck inside for 2 days. Like that's so laughable now after the pandemic. It's like we get cabin fever after like 6 months now. It's like 2 days inside. That's nothing.
Right. Well, it changed. Yeah, it changed everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
What time is it, by the way? I can't see the time.
1:06.
Oh, okay. I have to go soon. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Let's just do this pass out in the tub and then we're out of here.
Okay.
What's that? The story you wanted to tell about?
I thought that was a segment in your show.
No.
I thought that was a drinking segment.
No. This story, is your set. You told me this.
Right. I forgot about this story. Yeah, this story was okay. This is between junior and senior year of college. I remember that's the summer I started doing stand-up. So
that's everything.
I was working during the day in the summer and then trying to do stand-up and stuff at night. So I was very busy that summer. I was very I wasn't out as much. And I remember a friend of mine, he has a barbecue every year. And he was like, yo, I'm having a barbecue this year, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going for sure. I'm taking off. I'm going and I'm going to get drunk at your barbecue because I haven't been drinking. Like back then, that's what we used to do. Like with our boys, we would be like, yo, like I'm getting fucked up tonight. So don't think that I can't hold my liquor. Like I'm telling you.
I'm telling you now. Things are going to get weird.
Right. It's not a thing about I can't control my liquor. It's just what it's going to be. Like I'm going to. So I used to take you.
Dude, I love that. That's a fantastic way to approach it.
Right. So we used to give a heads up. So you can't be like, yo, you can't hold your liquor. Like, what? I told you.
No, because then your boys are turning to everybody else like, relax. He's cool. We knew he was going to do this.
Right. This the plan.
This was all a part of the plan.
Right. So I told him, I was like, yo, I'm wilding tonight. Like I'm wilding out. I'm drinking tonight. So we get there and I'm like, I'm staying true to my word. Like as soon as we get there, like the sun it's like 4 p.m. I'm like drinking. They made like a punch.
Punch, baby.
Never drink the punch. You don't. Yeah, that's the worst. Like
I've gotten fucked up on some punches at some barbecues.
You don't know what's in it. And if everyone claims that they use Top Shelf, but they don't.
No,
nobody
they don't.
Does. It's Devil Springs and Sid Becca. You know how it is. That's what they're using that shit. Sky vodka. It's never anything good. But I'm drinking, and I'm in my zone. Like I'm drinking, I'm having a good time. Like it honestly, like blindsided me. Like I'm having a good time. We're all drinking. Like I don't ever remember really being drunk. Like I don't remember. Drunk is step by step.
Oh yeah.
You like feel nice. Now you feel really nice.
I've got a whole bit about it. Yeah, you go in levels.
I think I'm getting fucked up now. Yeah. I don't remember that. Like I remember being sober and then vomiting on my friend's couch. Like that's what I remember. Like I literally we were all sitting in the living room. Barbecue was going on outside. It was like party. It was like small fractions of the party everywhere. So we was in the living room. It was like me, a couple of my boys, a couple of our homegirls from high school. Cause this is what it was, like a reunion barbecue. That's what he did. And I just remember sitting on my friend's couch and just vomiting.
In the living room?
In the living room in front of everybody. That's the last thing I remember. I come to at like 5 a.m, sitting in the bathtub with water running on me. Like I'm just laying in the bathtub, water running on me. I look, like I open the curtain, there's a girl peeing like in the bathtub. And I'm like, what happened? Cause I'm like sober.
Wait, there's a girl peeing. You said peeing in the bathtub. You meant peeing in the bathroom.
In the toilet.
Okay. And you're in the bathtub.
Yeah. I'm like, what happened? Cause like now I'm kind of like sober. Like I have like a little headache, but like I'm not hungover like I thought like I should be or whatever.
From sober to blackout to sober.
Yeah. I'm also wearing my boy's clothes, who my boy's like he played football. He's a lot bigger than me. So I'm wearing like these oversized shorts that I feel like a girl who slept over the guys, I'm wearing like these oversized shorts that don't fit me and a long shirt. And I'm just like, yo, what happened? And my boys is telling me the story. He's like, yo, bro, like you passed out on my friend's couch. You threw up all over his couch. You then threw up all over the bath. We took you to the bathroom. You threw up all over the bathroom. We put you in the bathtub. You threw up all over the bathtub. And then one of our homegirls, she was like a new mom. So she had like that motherly thing.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I was like, so what happened? And they was like, she took care of you. Like, she was like on her mom shit. Like, she just took care of you. She cleaned you up. Like, it didn't think. So I saw no semblance of it. Like, she just took care of me.
Damn.
And got it together. Long story short, I go home. They take me home. I sleep. The next day, we go back to my friend's house to help him like clean up after the barbecue. So it's like a couple of us there and a couple of random girls that was at the barbecue. So we sitting on the couch, like talking about the party. I don't remember none of it because I wasn't there for the party. Everybody and one of the girls is like, this pretty girl. She's like so pretty. She was like, do you remember like there was some fucking loser laying in the bathtub?
Oh, no.
Going on? And all of my boys was like, yeah, he's right here. And I was like, yeah, that was me. I was the fucking loser. That was
God damn. That's oh man. That's a great story to end on. You've got to, do you talk about that on stage? The whole like telling your friends you're going to get fucked up. Like it's a planned out thing.
I don't. Maybe
that's so funny, but it seems like it's so relatable, like normal. I feel like a lot of, because I'm an alcoholic, so I like every night as I'm getting fucked up, but I feel like a lot of people do that in their friend group. They're like, hey, don't bother me. Like I'm getting fucked up.
Right. Yeah. Maybe I should do that.
I really appreciate you coming on, man. To plug everything one more time, and then we'll get you out of here.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I'm at Ian Lara Live on Instagram, ianlaralive.com. You can search my name on YouTube. I have a Comedy Central half-hour special that's going to be out on YouTube at the beginning of the year. I think it's coming out. I'm out. They told me the date, but it's not confirmed, so I can't say it. But let's just say the beginning of February, it'll be out on YouTube, and I want people to watch it and share it and make it go viral.
Yeah, everybody check that out. And then you and I are going to be on a show, Citizens of Chelsea, January 6th, Thursday at 7:30. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, Brennan.
Wear your outfits. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. BrennanTComedy.com, Brennan T Comedy on all social media. Subscribe to the Patreon, and we'll talk to y'all next week.